Hi everyone, it's Gina K from Gina K Designs and welcome back to another video. Today on Stamp TV, I'm going to show you a fun inking technique that uses ink pads and then a variety of other things to create a multi-toned look. Let me show you the tools and products you're going to need to do this technique. First, you're going to need some stamps, and the stamps that I'm using are the stamps from the new A Big Hello card kit, and I'm using the stamp set called A Big Hello. And I'm going to use this big, solid, floral image here for all three of my cards. Then you're going to need some ink, and the ink colors that I'm going to use are Jelly Bean Green, Moonlit Fog. For the greetings, I'm going to use Black Onyx, and then I've got a couple of different tools here that are going to be used for my second color. One of them is a water-based marker. This is a Tombow marker, and it's got a bullet point end and it's got a brush tip end, and the brush tip end is the end that we are going to use for this technique. I'm also going to use a Zig Clean Color Real Brush Marker. So this is more like a watercolor brush marker. You can watercolor with these as well, but these feel more like an actual coloring marker or a hand lettering marker because of the type of tip that it has. This one actually has a brush on the tip. So I'm going to use this for one of the techniques. The other thing I'm going to use for one of the techniques is an ink cube. And here I have the Tranquil Teal ink, and this is going to coordinate with one of the colors here. I think I'm going to coordinate that with Jelly Bean Green. I'm going to bring one more ink color into the mix here for a technique, and that's going to be the Bubblegum Pink. So I'll be using that one too. Now for the greeting on one of my cards, I am going to use a Versamark ink pad and some clear fine detail embossing powder. I'm going to show you a little tip on how to get a crisp black embossed image. Okay, then I have a piece of cardstock here for my embossing powder, and of course I'm going to bring in my trusted Misty for this. So to begin, I'm going to start with a piece of cardstock. I'm going to put that into my Misty stamping tool. And then I'm going to use this stamp, and you can see it's really stained because I have been using it for so many different kinds of techniques, having a lot of fun with this one, but a stained stamp is a love stamp, right? So I'm going to place that down onto my cardstock on the corner here, just like that. And then I'm going to pick it up with the Door of the Misty. Now, my first technique that I'm going to use is going to use the Moonlit Fog ink, and it's going to use this dark purple Tombow marker. This color is 606. I also have 636. I wasn't sure which one to use, but I'm going to try this 606 for this technique. So I'm going to ink up this stamp really well with some Moonlit Fog ink. Make sure I get it nice and inky. And then I'm going to take this marker and I'm going to do a thumping technique where I just kind of hit it all over the place with the marker. And you can see I'm kind of turning the marker as I go, and I'm just thumping that marker all over the flowers and the leaves. Okay. Now it really looks weird right now, but it's going to look pretty good. All right. So now I'm going to stamp that onto my white cardstock. And I'm going to really make sure that I get good contact with this, because it would be very hard to reproduce that a second time if I had to go back and stamp it again. And you can see all of the beautiful shading between that dark purple and that Moonlit Fog. Isn't that so pretty? This one almost looks like a blue. Now for my sample card that I'm going to show you in a minute, I did use the 636, but I was really interested to see what this looked like. So you'll be able to see the difference between those two colors. So I'm going to clean this stamp off using my tidy towel. And then I'm going to put that stamp off to the side for a second. Now it's time to add the greeting. So let's clean that off. And my tidy towel is a little bit wet, so I want to just dry that off. Okay, so for my greeting, I am going to use that big hello right here. And I'm going to do that right on top of that floral. So I'm going to place it right about, I'll do this one up here like that. And I'm going to pick that up with the door of the MISTI, and then I'm going to stamp it, make sure it's tucked into that bottom corner. This is one of those times where you really want to make sure that it's positioned correctly, because you are going to double stamp. So I'm going to start with some black onyx ink, and I'm going to stamp that big hello using this ink. I want to make sure I have good contact. I can always go back though and stamp this a second time if I need to, which I think I'm going to do. Okay, we'll stamp it a second time for good measure. Okay, now that's nice and bold. Now I'm going to clean off that stamp with my tidy towel. And then, I'll make sure I absorb some of that water. I hate to use a paper towel on there, but I think I'm going to do it. Okay, paper towels sometimes are a little linty. Now I'm going to use my Versamark next. So before I do that, I am going to use this little embossing magic pad just over the surface of that, and then I want to make sure that that's back in that same corner. Now I'm going to go over it again with the Versamark. Get that nice and inky and stamp that hello. Okay, so now I'm going to take a piece of scrap paper and I'm going to take my fine detail clear powder and I'm going to put that all over that big hello. And now I'm going to use my heat tool and I'm going to emboss that. Now I see a few places on here that I missed with the Versamark, and I can tell because they didn't absorb that powder. So once I emboss that the first time, I can go back over it a second time, and I want to make sure that it's dry, and then I can use some more Versamark all over that, and I can stamp it a second time. And then again, using my clear embossing powder, I can sprinkle that all over it. And you can see that time all the embossing powder stuck. You can kind of see because it looks kind of like milky, like there's a haze over the black. And that's just going to give me a little bit of a thicker powdered look, which I won't mind at all. And this is a great way to emboss in whatever color ink that you want, because you don't have to worry about any little speckles of other colors kind of getting on there. You can see how pretty and shiny that looks. Yeah, I like that second coat on there. That just thickened everything up so nicely. So now I can add a second greeting on there. So I think for this one, I'm going to say, hello, my friend. So I want to make sure that's right in the right spot there. And then I'm going to clean off this hello stamp and take that off of the MISTI. And pick up the My Friend. Make sure that that's straight. It could be a little bit straighter. Excuse my head if it gets in the way. Here we go. Okay, and then again, I'm going to ink it up with some black When I use these tiny greetings like this, I really like to use the little black ink cube. I feel like it doesn't get all over the MISTI. You could get it just on the greeting. So ink cubes are really useful. There we go. I might give that a second coat. So let me clean off this. And we'll do a second coat of black. There we go. And now, leaving everything exactly where it is, I'm going to clean off that greeting. And then I'm going to ink it with some Versamark. I am going to tap it with a little bit of that anti-static embossing magic pad. And then I'm going to put some of that clear embossing powder on top. And I can see that you can see how it got all hazy, so it's completely covered. And once again, I'm going to heat that. And you'll know when it's done because it'll turn nice and black and shiny. So now I have Hello My Friend, and it's all embossed, and it looks like it's embossed with black embossing powder. So again, by using this embossing technique, you can have as many colors of embossing powder as you have colors of ink in your collection. And that really just increased your stash of embossing colors. Okay, so now the next step is going to be to assemble this card. And I brought some card pieces here, so I'm going to grab those out of this envelope. I've got a black card base and a Moonlit Fog card base and a black panel. So I am going to adhere the Moonlit Fog, or rather the white, onto the black and then onto the Moonlit Fog. Start with a little bit of tape, and whenever you're embossing, sometimes that paper gets a little bit warped. Might require a tiny bit more tape just to keep all the corners down. All right, so there we go. That looks pretty good. And then this whole thing is going to go on top of this Moonlit Fog card base. And you can embellish that any way that you want. I'll show you the way I embellished this one. So I did another one using the Just Wanted to Say Hello, and I used some of our gunmetal crystalline drops. So they've got a little bit of a sparkle to them, and it's a little different than a sequin. These dried overnight, so they're nice and dry, no chance of them smearing. And you can see the little bit of a difference between the two different colors. So this was the 636 and this was the 606. So this one might be a little bit brighter of a purple, but not by much. Those colors are pretty close. So that's a fun combination right there. Now let me show you a couple other combinations. I'm going to get my MISTI and I'm going to load this big floral stamp back onto a piece of cardstock. So again, I'm going to put the cardstock down here at the bottom and put my stamp right along the side. And for this next one, I'm going to use some of the greens. So I'm going to start with some Jelly Bean Green ink. And then, let me ink that up real well with Jelly Bean. I just love this color combination together, the Jelly Bean Green and some Tranquil Teal. So I'm going to use just an ink cube instead of a marker this time, and I'm just going to bounce some ink kind of all over it. I always use my lighter color first so that it doesn't really bother my darker color. And then I'm going to stamp that. I love this combination. Doesn't look very good here, but when you take it off, look how pretty that is. Isn't that beautiful? So for this one, I'm going to flip it upside down. I am going to clean the stamp because I still have some of that darker ink on there. And then I'm going to just wring out my tidy towel a little and then sop up any water there. I'm going to grab my paper towel. And then I'm going to do that one more time on the other side. Now you might want to check to see that it's not going to overlap, and that looks like it's going to be just fine. So I'm going to do the flip side with the jelly bean green. And then, once again, with that Tranquil Teal ink cube, I'm just going to bounce that ink on there. And then I'm going to stamp it again. Oh, that's so pretty. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful? So easy and so simple. It's really hard to do it wrong. There's no way to do it wrong. It's always going to look good. So I want to show you a card that I made using this panel. So here is that card, and what I did here is I used this little stamp set called Hugs, and this stamp set has a coordinating Hugs die. So I actually die cut the word Hugs, and then I used the end prayers, so Hugs and prayers, and then I embellished it pretty heavily there with some of the Emerald City sequins. And all I did was mount that panel onto a black panel and then onto a jelly bean green card base. So that one's super easy to make, and it really looks spectacular with that color combination. It doesn't even really look like teal. It looks like just a deeper, darker emerald green. For my next one, I want to show you how to use the Zig Clean Color brush marker with this technique. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to start with some bubblegum pink, and then I have this marker, and this is the dark pink Zig Clean Color brush marker. So I'm going to ink this up really well, once again with some bubblegum pink ink. Then I'm going to take this Clean Color brush marker and I'm going to just smoosh the brush all over. And you can see those bristles are just kind of spreading out, and I'm just kind of pouncing that color all over. Then I'm going to take that and stamp it. Now this would also look really pretty if you misted it with a little bit of water, but look at that. Isn't that pretty? Oh, that's so pretty. I love that. And for this one, I'll show you the finished card that I made with it. Here's the finished card that I made. Very, very simple layout. What I did was I used one of my favorite greeting sets. This is called Lovely Words. I use this stamp set so much. It's a great staple for your stash. So I put the Much Love there, and then I just added 3 little disco ball sequins, and I mounted that onto a black panel and then onto a bubblegum pink card base. Well, I hope you've enjoyed today's Stamp TV video, and I hope you'll give these techniques a try. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you never miss another video. Here are a couple other videos I think you might enjoy. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again soon.